when Jesus saves, he heals. Hebrews 7:25 says this, that Jesus has come to save, but not just a little. It says that he's come to save to the uttermost. It means to completion. I haven't brought up Tim Keller for a minute because I usually don't quote Tim Keller, but here we go. Tim Keller has got this thing that I love. He says, the gospel, the good news of Jesus, isn't the ABCs of life. It's the A to Z of life. It's the whole thing. And the reality here that we see here is that Jesus who saves is one who's bringing healing. But it's not just healing in one aspect. It's not just the healing of now this broken relationship with God it can be restored because Jesus is on the scene. It's also, hey, any brokenness that is there and present in your life that you have done and hurt to other people as well, guess what? Jesus is going to go bring about a healing in that as well. You see here, Zacchaeus gets up, right? And he proclaims out in front of the whole crowd, in front of the whole party, I want you to know, Jesus, you. I love this. He doesn't have to prove himself to the people. He goes, Jesus, for you. I want you to know this. The half of my goods I give to the poor. That is a declaration following the Torah, this Old Testament law. He's going, hey, listen, I want to go ahead and I want to give to the poor, but then I want to take it up even more so. And if I defrauded anyone of anything, I restore it fourfold. I'm going to tell you why that's shocking. Because the requirement actually would be restore what you've stolen and then a fifth more. A fifth more would be it, okay? That's what was prescribed there, okay? But to say, hey, listen, I give half my goods to poor, half of that to poor, but then anyone I've cheated and gained from, I restored fourfold. My gosh, that's above and beyond. Some people take a look at this passage and say, wow, that's awesome. That's very generous. That's an incredible way to live out life differently as a result of God. And I would say, yes, that's true. But I also want to give it as a case for biblical reparations. That this is a place where we look here and we see someone who has stolen from his people, who has gained a living off of his people, and at this point has been so transformed by Jesus who comes to his house, a Jesus who dwells with him, that already we see the product of a transformed life, which is a life of transformation. He then goes forward to say, hey, listen, I will pay back what is owed and more. Because the reality is, if I've stolen from you, it means I've disadvantaged you for a while. And so I recognize this. And so I'm giving more. I'm giving more back to you than what I've stolen. Why? Because it is what is owed to you. Y'all, when I think about reparations and the reality of reparations here, I think about this reality of how we should be engaged in biblical reparations too. I think about some movements of reparations that are out there in the world. I think about Georgetown University. And how Georgetown University has this Georgetown reparations plan in place to seek to bring about reparations for 272 enslaved people, enslaved Africans who were sold to benefit the college's cause pre-Civil War. And they are making movements right now. This Jesuit community is making movements right now to bring about reparations. Why? Because they see that it is right. They see that it is following Jesus. They see that it is a product of living out the gospel. And so this is what must happen. I love that. But then I think about for us, what does it mean for us, church? What does it mean for us to engage in a movement of reparations? Okay, listen. We're Reconcile Church. We've been around just for like we're baby, okay? We're young, okay? But what does that look like for us? Well, I'll say this. One of the ways that we can engage in biblical reparations is to be able to push back against the narrative which has been so pressed in for so long within the church in America, which is not to really care or support for missionaries of color. That so often that has been something that it has said, hey, listen, that can go to the wayside. We don't need that. You know what we're going to fund? We're going to keep funding these missions agencies and missions organizations that are primarily white. And the reality is that we can be people who then step in and see the narrative and say, this is wrong. we want to bring change here, we need missionaries of color to go all throughout the world to impact and love communities who are living in the margin. Because I would say this is so often the reality is of the connection that is there, the power that is there, is that missionaries of color understand what life is like in the margin. They understand that, so they can go and minister from a place of empathy. And how necessary that narrative is, that needs to change. So for the church, I'm going to say this for Reconcile, we will be a church that supports and presses and lifts up missionaries of color here. We will be people like that. There's so much more that's entailed there. We can tell the truth about Black history. We can tell the truth about the indigenous people. And we can be people who then make a commitment to heal and be part of a healing movement as opposed to a movement that separates. So here we see when Jesus saves, he heals. Zacchaeus here is offering reparations from a heart that has been transformed by Jesus.